Have you ever looked at your life and wondered, how did I end up here? Maybe you imagined motherhood looking different, or you thought by now everything would have worked out. Instead, you've been praying prayers that haven't been answered the way you hoped. You're trying to trust God while your heart still hurts. Today, I want to tell you about a woman who probably asked some of those same questions. Her name is Esther. And I don't think her story is just about saving a nation. I think it's about what God is doing when we can't see yet the whole picture. This is episode 30, the beautiful truth hidden in Esther's story. If you're an LDS mom carrying worry, heartbreak, or fear over your adult child's choices, you're in the right place. I'm Sherry Lee Karchner, and this channel is here to help you find peace, strengthen your faith, and remember that your story and your family's story is not over. This week in Come Follow Me, we are studying Esther. And I want to say, I am not a scriptorian, not even close. I am far from that, but I love the story of Esther and the message and lessons we can learn from her. So let's take a look at her story and find beautiful truths that will bless our lives. Esther is a beautiful young Jewish woman whose parents have died, and she is being raised by her cousin Mordecai. She's carried captive into Babylon, and through unexpected series of events, Esther is chosen to become queen, though she keeps her Jewish identity hidden. Even though Esther becomes queen, Mordecai stays close and checks on her continually. Because of this, he foils a plan to kill the king, which earns him honor and reward. Having raised Esther as his own daughter, his love and concern for her never stops. He quietly watches over and remains a steady presence in her life. It also gets him in some trouble with Haman, a powerful official in the king's court, who craves recognition, praise, and power. When Mordecai refuses to bow to him because he will only bow to God, Haman's wounded pride turns into rage. Instead of targeting only Mordecai, Haman creates a plan to destroy all of the Jewish people. This is where Esther is faced with an impossible decision, a real challenge. Mordecai asks her to go before the king and plead for mercy. But approaching the king without being invited could mean death, even for the queen. Esther knows that if she reveals she is Jewish, she could also be killed. She asks the people to go and fast and pray for 3 days for her. She's courageous, and she chooses to go before the king, saying, "If I perish, I perish." That is faith and fear existing at the same time. She trusts in the faith more than being limited by the fear. Through her courage, wisdom, and faith, Esther reveals Haman's plan to the king and pleads for her people to be saved. What she didn't know in the beginning was that God had been preparing her all along to stand in that exact moment for such a time as this. That's in Esther 4:14. Esther was an orphan. She had been exiled. She was raised by her cousin. She was living in Babylon, and she was an ordinary young woman. I wonder if Esther ever thought, this isn't the life I imagined. I am sure there are many women listening to this that are thinking the same things. This isn't the life I imagined. Things aren't going the way I thought they would. A few weeks ago in our Summer of Letting Go series, I talked about faith and fear existing at the same time. If we have faith, that doesn't mean we don't feel afraid. Esther wasn't fearless. She was faithful while afraid. Those are two very different things. Esther didn't know why she was there. Mordecai didn't know why she was there, but God knew. Have you wondered why your family looks different than you hoped? Maybe you've wondered why God hasn't fixed things yet. Esther's story reminds us that God is often preparing something long before we can recognize it. And also remember, God honors agency. Let's talk about Haman and Mordecai refusing to bow to him. Haman creates a decree, an impossible situation for the Jewish people. Esther had courage. She had the faith, knowing that if I perish, I perish. She understood that she had a job to do, and she didn't know how. She trusted in God. She had the faith more than the fear, knowing that whatever happens is what was meant to happen. She didn't know what was going to happen. She could have been put to death. That does seem a little ridiculous for us in today's day and age. We don't usually face death for standing up for what we believe. But we also don't always know all the how. How is God going to mend my family? How is this all going to work out? We've been promised happiness. We've been promised eternal life together as a family. If someone uses their agency different than we would hope they would, it's heartbreaking and it can be hard, and we can carry burdens really that weren't ours to carry, but we put them on our backs. We load those backpacks with rocks of worry and fear and frustration and disappointment and discouragement. But remember, in the allegory of the olive tree, God is pruning, He is digging, He is nurturing, and He is waiting. We, or at least I, get very impatient with the waiting. How long does that even mean? It might mean your child's lifetime. But God has a plan, and He has put a lot of things in place for all of us. I want to remind you that courage isn't waiting until you're no longer afraid. I am sure Esther had a lot of fear. She had a lot of faith when she walked into the king, but she also had some fear. She told us that. If I perish, I perish. We might think that courage feels like confidence. Esther tells us otherwise. She fasted, she prayed, and she was afraid. She trusted in God, but that trust does not always mean that there is no fear. We can let go of some fear and have more faith. We often think that courage feels like confidence. Courage today might look like having one more loving conversation, or not having that conversation, letting go of trying to control, showing up at church even when your heart aches, trusting God another day, another week, or another season, refusing to give fear the final word. Esther fasted, prayed, and had some fear, and she walked in anyways. Faith didn't replace Esther's fear. She leaned into faith even though she had some fear. Because of Mordecai's faithfulness, the king remembers that he didn't honor him. He throws him a beautiful banquet. Then we have Haman's downfall. Everything came together for them at that time. None of those moments probably looked like they would work out for Esther as she was living in them. We have the luxury of knowing the end of the story. Things might only make sense as we look backwards. I've had a lot of experiences when I'm in them, I can't figure out how this is going to work out. But when I've made it through and I am back to a place of more peace, looking back, I can see God's hands in what was happening when I couldn't right in the moment. It's that pruning and digging and nurturing and waiting that we don't always see. I want you to lean into the fact of knowing that God is writing a story that you can't read yet. Maybe today feels like chapter 6, but you're trying to judge the ending before you reach chapter 10. Don't mistake unfinished chapters for the final page. In Esther's story, there's a verse that says, "Who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" I want to give you something to think about. What if this season isn't meant to be filled with heartache? What if this season is preparation? What if God trusted you with this family? What if He knows you would become someone because of this journey? What if your child's story is shaping your discipleship in ways you cannot see? For you and for them. I'm sure you're not standing before a king being faced with a really hard task, but you're standing in holy places every day. You're around your dinner table. You're having difficult conversations. You are continuing to pray prayers that you have been saying for a long time. You're sitting in sacrament meeting. You're waiting. You're loving, hoping, trusting. Those moments matter. They are holy. If you're like me, you never imagined motherhood looking this way. I could almost bet if you asked every mom on the earth, 100% of them would say, wow, that did not go the way I imagined it would. Esther had an unexpected story. God was preparing her. Faith and fear lived together. She acted anyways. God revealed what she could not see, and He is doing the same for you. I want to remind you that your story is not over. Your child's story is not over. God's work isn't finished simply because you cannot see it yet. Just like Esther, you may not understand why you've been placed where you are. But one day you may look back and discover that heaven was quietly weaving things together that you could not imagine. You have heavenly parents who are working behind the scenes, like they were in Esther's story. If you've got something weighing heavy on your heart, if you have been carrying burdens that weren't yours to carry, if you have children who have left the church and you're questioning your motherhood and your worth, I would love to talk with you. I would love to invite you to come on a free Find Connection and Peace call with me. In 25 minutes, you will have some peace. I would love to talk with you. Go to the link and schedule a free call with me. I can't thank you enough for being here, and I hope that Esther's story gives you some hope that maybe you've been missing. Thank you for spending time with me today. If this conversation touched your heart, subscribe, follow, and share this channel with another mom who may need hope too. You can also explore more videos here on faith, mindset, parenting adult children, emotional healing, and finding peace in hard seasons. Remember this, your child's story is still unfolding. and so is yours.